Hi, my name is Ursa Young. I am a therapist, a soul-based coach, and a hypnotherapist from Slovenia. And today I'm hosting one of my all-time favorite teachers, Annemiek, who is the founder of Soul-Based Coaching Academy. And we are talking today about why it's so important to both honor our clients' wisdom and be compassionate to the pain. Hello, Annemiek.
Hey, Ursa,
Hi.
I'm so happy that we're having this conversation. Thank you.
Likewise. So yeah, and maybe just a little bit of an introduction about soul-based coaching and how you feel. This is so important. How does this come in to play in soul-based coaching? So both having this honoring and awareness of the client's wisdom and being compassionate to the pain, and why you feel this is a crucial aspect of our work.
Yeah, such a good question. There's so much that we can say about it. Let me start by saying that in soul-based coaching, what we do is we teach our coaches to become midwives for the change the client system is ready for, that's waiting, that they want to make the changes they want to make, but maybe can't quite get to by themselves, or they want to get it done quicker. And in that way of coaching, what we teach people to do is really access that inner knowing, that deep inner knowing, and that innate capacity for healing and change that is available for all of us. That is just part of our human psyche. And within that, there's a couple of things that we pay a lot of attention to. One is that the client is always the one who's going to tell the coach where they want to go. And this sounds like super obvious, but
that it's not always the case.
It is really not always the case. And so what that means, like very practically, we ask our client, what would you like to have happen? And we listen really carefully to that answer, whether this is something that they want more of, something that that they want to work towards. And then if it meets that criteria, then that's what we're going to work on. Nothing else, like literally nothing else. And this is a super important starting point, because this is what kind of gets all the fuel for the change. It starts to line up all the inner resources for what wants to happen. And we're not going to put our own ideas or views kind of on top of that, even with the extended wisdom that we have as coaches or as human beings who've been alive for quite a while, and surviving is thriving is gorgeous in this world. We're going to not put any of that on top of our client's experience, because the client has everything that they need already within them. So this is just a tiny little viewpoint into soul-based coaching. I think it's probably a good place to start. What do you think?
Yes, definitely. I feel like with soul-based coaching, one of the things that I've noticed across different modalities is, and having a background of therapy and healing, it's so important not to re-traumatize the client and go into places they're not ready to go yet. And this is always the case with, I don't know, parts work, going into a bit of the exploration of the pain, but you never should overstep that. You should not be in a way going into the trauma and going there too fast. And I think soul-based coaching is great because it accesses this part of innate wisdom, part of the self that is really wise, just like you said, that can in a way regulate the system and be there for the system and all the parts, all the parts that are in there. So I feel this is such a big contribution in working with metaphors and not really going there and having people really relive some trauma. But it's actually, I think it's very positive in that sense, that it honors this wisdom and it keeps on honoring the system, I feel. So definitely I think this is a great benefit of soul-based coaching.
Yeah, and I think it's so beautiful one of the things that has opened my eyes to, like, I don't know, 1,000 degrees is the incredible capacity that we all have. And it doesn't matter whether a client is, like, doesn't know anything in that moment, or is like immersed in their emotions, or like still, like even without them knowing, there is this whole treasure trove inside of them. And it is such an incredible privilege to be able to help people access that without having to think that I know which resource is going to be the thing that's going to really help them move through this part of their journey, or without me having to decide like, oh, let's look at this, or let's bring up this piece, because the client's system has an inherent wisdom in it that is going to show us exactly the pieces that are going to carry the medicine. And it's like, it's my hands are starting to do this. It's like training ourselves to be able to discern where these pieces are and how you can call on them on behalf of your client when they're not able to do that themselves in that moment. That is where the skill is. And I think also this is where we move over into that other piece of the equation. So you're like, that's making me think, are there only two pieces? There's probably more. Anyway, that's a different conversation. But like there's always this pain attached to change, right? There's always parts of a client's experience or parts of their psyche that have had experiences or that carry beliefs that what the client wants is going to be hard or difficult, or that's going to prevent them from doing something that that part of the system feels might be dangerous or take them out of safety in some way. And so it's really important to also honor these parts and to be incredibly compassionate towards them, because they are part of, like, it's like we're looking in soul-based coaching, I think in all of the other modalities that you work with, we're really looking at the client as a whole, as a system that is made up out of lots of different, not just parts, but layers and complexities and dimensions that are all working together to have this current experience of life. And when I say this current experience of life, that's a changing thing, right? It's not a one static, like this is me now. No, even in this moment, there's like, my blood is flowing through my veins, the oxygen is flowing through my lungs. Even in my brain, things are wiring and firing. So that's what we hold. And when we're working with someone, we want to make sure that whole is taken care of, because that there's a part of the client that goes, I want this experience to change. Right? I want something different in my life. And so that part is what brings them into your door. And then we want to look at, okay, so how does everyone else, everything else within the client system relate to that? And how can we help the client make that, my hands are very talkative, make that move and make sure that it happens in integrity and in alignment. Because as long as not everything is aligned, there's going to be, an inner resistance to change with very good reason.
Yeah, definitely. I think in different modalities, there is this. Well, there's different approaches, of course, and there's different ways. Maybe just a thought. What is the difference between, or where do you feel like soul-based coaching? I found that it can be a very powerful, a very effective structure, symbolic modeling both, and clean language, using that framework even within other modalities, that and being trauma informed. I feel like those aspects, and I think soul-based coaching is, as in its essence. But I'm just wondering, how do you delineate like coaching, therapy, where can people go with this skill?
Yeah, it's such a good question. maybe to start that answer, it's good to look at where does soul-based coaching come from. So an important part of our tool bag is coming from David Grove, who was a New Zealand-based therapist in the 1980s, and he worked with trauma. He was a therapist working with trauma survivors, so both sexual trauma, childhood trauma, but also war traumas of veterans. And one of the things that he noticed was that when people would be in the session and he would take them through a reliving of the trauma, which was part of the approach at the time, what he noticed was that people would start to speak in metaphors. It's like the closer they would get to the trauma, the more they would start to speak in metaphor. And he was looking at that and thinking, so what if that is a function of a healthy human being? Can we honor that instead of kind of trying to cut through it? How can I stay with that metaphor and explore what it does and what it can do for the client? And this is how he developed something called clean language, which is what we use in soul-based coaching. And he started to explore what these metaphors do. And so what he noticed was that the clean language, which was devised to take as much interference of his own actions out of the interaction so that the metaphor could be what it was. What he found was that these metaphors not only carried a lot of information, and so you could look at it's like a zip file for a whole experience and all of the layers and consequences and beliefs and everything, even the physical imprints that were created in that moment. And when you start to pay attention to it and really honor it, that metaphor has the capacity to change. And that is really interesting, because that's when we get to that innate capacity to heal and change, like in a nutshell. It's like when we start to honor that metaphor and ask it what it wants, then the metaphor can change. And when the metaphor changes, so does the way that the client is wired. It's very, in a way, you could say it's bizarre. Like from our logical mind perspective, it's kind of bizarre. But we've seen over and over again that this is what happens. So in that respect, the tools that we use are very robust in like a setting of working with trauma. I should also mention that Penny Tompkins and James Lawley are my mentors who have taken a lot of what David has done and made that accessible to people through symbolic modeling. And that, again, that's part of the tool set that we teach within soul-based coaching. These tools can stand very well on themselves. Like they're very complete toolkit that can really help you kind of move a transformation from like A to B. Within the academy, we teach them within a coaching context. So we don't, teach therapists from A to Z. So this is important, because as a therapist and working with people who have endured, for example, sexual trauma or any other, here we're getting into method, like language around trauma. There's like, again, so many layers of this, but anyone who is not able to function okay in daily life, they should see a therapist. There's just no question about that. We need to be very clear about that.
Yeah.
But there's layers of like there's levels of trauma, there's layers of trauma, and the dare I say lighter ones. I'm still kind of looking for what the language is that will capture this in the best possible way. There's lots of different paradigms out there at the moment. But we can work with these within soul-based coaching. Mapping it the other way, looking at other modalities, it is having the soul-based coaching tools. It's like a carpenter's bag, as we're talking about metaphor. It's like having a hammer and nails and a saw that are super effective, very versatile, and therefore you can really easily drop them into other modalities that you're working with. And so, I know that you're doing hypnotherapy and internal family systems. Within any of these methodologies, clean questions, the power of holding space, metaphor work, they can all very much enrich what is possible there. So I'm super enthusiastic when people are like, oh yeah, I wanna like bring that together because I can just feel what's possible when I do. Like, yes, let's do that. I don't think there's a be all and end all in any of the modalities that are out there. I think there are, there's so many different kinds of people, different kind of preferences, for us as coaches or therapists, but also for our clients. Like let's not become like this. Let's look at, hey, what can we contribute to the wider conversation on how we can support people to heal, to be their best selves, but also to co-create the world that we actually want to live in for the rest of our lives.
Definitely so important. I feel that's such an important message. And in my experience, soul-based coaching and the benefit of soul-based coaching, even when you work with someone who, for example, has experienced sexual trauma or fragmentation, that is, and dissociation, which are quite a serious issue. Still honoring their wisdom, still not minimizing them in a sense to you are only that, because they are not only that, they are not just the thing that happened. I think it's beautiful when you bring in soul-based coaching as well, and that question, what would you like to have happen, right? That said, I feel sometimes people do need different things at different times. There's times when, for example, in my practice, we would do more of parts work. And yet even there, I would be very, I would always listen to, okay, what is this experience like? What is it like being in that system? And I think it's so important honoring the ecosystem of the client as well, and not just coming with pre-prepared solutions, right?
Yeah. I think this is one of the things that I really value about this modality that we're bringing, is that when you get trained in soul-based coaching, there's like a level of discernment that you're training in yourself to start noticing things for clients that otherwise would probably kind of slip by. And this is when you get to be in a much better position to make the choices as you're making them, to go, well, not right now, it feels like this would be the best approach, or right now I'm going to do some of this, or I'm going to insert some of that. Having that, trained your discernment means that you can make these choices well on behalf of your client.
Yes, definitely. And I feel, in a sense, to use a metaphor, it's like you're on the surface of language before, and then you begin and explore these metaphors, the zip files, and there's like this whole gift, another world that opens up. I feel you get a lot more depth in the sense of understanding the client system.
Yeah, and I can imagine, one of the things that I see happen with my clients is that it's not just that the coach or the therapist starts to understand more about the client starts to feel into the incredible depth of who they are. And there's like a soul knowing that can start to shine through, which helps so tremendously with healing, because as you say, there's so much more than this thing that happened and how they were able to respond or cope with that in that moment. There's like a vastness to them as an individual that is so striking. And it's like when we can offer people, this experience of tapping into that's like a
it is like a I must agree. And the soul knowing you mentioned, the soul knowing, I feel it's incredible how much wisdom people have when you allow it to be channeled or to shine through them. So much wisdom, all these yogic truth, having a bit of a background in yogic philosophy. It's amazing. Just the other day, we're talking with this client about, we're doing this exercise about purpose. And at the end, she was just like being in the moment, being grateful. And it just struck me, it's like this yogic principle of santosha. being in the moment, savoring the moment, growing, and yet being, appreciating all that you have. And it's amazing how much wisdom people have. When you allow it.
Even without them being aware of it, right? This is what so
Definitely.
excites me. It's like that. We're so used in our society, we're so used to looking for this wisdom outside of ourselves, or we think that it's in books or in our brains, but it's actually in our DNA, right? Like it's literally within us, within our bodies, and offering people that really clear channel into that and connecting with that wisdom. That's like such an enormous prerogative. Like it's like such a gift to be allowed and to be able to do that with people, and to just kind of see that it's not about it's easy to think like, oh yeah, I know these truths too. I'd like, yeah, I've heard of that, I've seen that, I've listened to that. But it's such a big difference when it is something that you're like feeling in every cell of your body, that this is your truth, that this is the truth that runs through you in this moment. And that's the gift that we can give our clients, to find out what that is.
It's like an unpacking of all these little gifts inside, all these treasures inside. And then compassion. How about compassion? What do you feel is the role of compassion?
I think,
and do you feel like, to be a bit provocative, do you feel that there's still coaches out there who lack compassion?
Oh yeah.
An easy one, huh?
Yeah.
So the role of compassion.
It's I think without compassion, it's like the when we're talking about that innate healing capacity, without compassion, it doesn't get the oxygen that it needs to breathe. And it's not just our compassion, like, oh, I'm going to be so compassionate for my clients, but it's also the client's compassion for themselves and their own experience. And it is compassion as a practice towards life. Like that's without compassion, there is, as I said, there's no oxygen for that healing capacity, for that capacity to grow in wholeness and in alignment, without having to fragment ourselves even further, or to like cut pieces off and kind of put them to the side. Like we need all of it to be on the table, all of it to be in the mix, to create wellness, to help restore wholeness.
To help restore wholeness, such a great goal, I think, as well, in using soul-based coaching and in doing this as a community, more and more of us. I think, it's definitely a step towards wholeness. More and more coaches we get out there who use compassion, who can have this wisdom within themselves. And I remember working with metaphors, what kind of a coach, what kind of a person, when you're at your best as a coach, what does that look like? Again, I think it's such an important part, the vision that you bring in Academy for the coaches, right? And their emerging wisdom as well. So you have a 5-day training as well coming up, right? So perhaps a bit more about that and how people can join.
Yeah, it's a free 5-day coach training, and we've done it once before. It's a little bit insane in terms of the amount of value that we're offering, but it feels like it's so important to have these skills out in the world at this point in time. And so what we're doing is we're doing 5 days of live Zoom trainings. We're going across time zones so that everyone can join. And in that, we're going to offer the foundational skills of soul-based coaching that you're going to be able to use immediately within your own settings, whether you're working as a therapist or a coach, or whether you're just someone who enjoys working with people or working with yourself even. And we're going to be starting towards on the 25th of October. So if you want to join, then yeah, please do, and let everyone else know who you feel might be interested in learning more about this.
It's such a great training. I can only recommend it. Honestly, one of the best experiences. So the five-day training that you get for free is definitely an amazing opportunity for learning more about honoring the wisdom and yet having compassion. So thank you so much, Annemiek. Thank you for a lovely chat today.
Thank you so much for doing this together today. And yeah, we'll make sure that the link to join the training is near this video wherever you're watching it. Yeah. Thank you, Ursa.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and keep up the great work.